Hello, so today I will be talking about an interview that I had with my father about his experience as an immigrant in the country and how he went through everything and how things have changed for him after he got his citizenship. So, my father's name is Lefty Perez. He was born in a small town, Hala Nayarit. My grandparents were born there and they just never left. My father was blessed. He had a big family, he had six siblings. Um, he had two sisters, one which passed away from cancer, and one is still living in Mexico. He has four brothers. Two of them are here, and two are still in Mexico. My dad lived in a one-bedroom home with his parents and siblings when they were younger. There was no electricity, they had no telephones, and there was no plumbing in the house. They didn't have a bathroom or showers. They would wash dishes and do their laundry outside on the cement slab. The water would go down a hole into the ground. Growing up, my dad had to take showers, cold showers, in a trough. Um, they would sometimes warm up the water in the stove if it was really cold outside, but for the most part, they showered with cold water. My grandparents were pretty poor, um, and they struggled to support their children. They were never bought anything. They were usually just given clothes that were hand-me-downs. So my dad never got a new pair of shoes until he came over to the U.S. The typical dinner that they would have on a daily basis was beans, cheese, and tortillas because it was so cheap. That's what they would eat. They never really had a chance to celebrate any holidays just because they didn't have money for it, which is crazy because now our family celebrates holidays every holiday that passes. My father was not in school for long. He went to eighth grade, but because he wasn't good in school and he always got in trouble, my grandpa told him that he had a choice between going to school or working, and he chose to work. Um, they really didn't have chores. They just had to help their parents around the house. My grandpa was very strict. He made them all work at a young age. They were taught to work hard. My dad would have to take care of the animals. They had chicken, pigs, and horses. They were in charge of the fields as well that my grandpa owned. Um, that's where they would grow vegetables, corn, sugar cane, radish, and cilantro. And my grandma, she would go to a market in town and she would sell what they would grow. Um, my dad left his hometown when he was 15 years old. He first went to Tijuana to work at a factory where he made handles and tubes for golfing. Um, but he didn't make enough there, so he decided to cross the border illegally when he was 16. He was scared because there was no life for him in Mexico, but he decided to take a chance and cross the border and see what it was like over here. He crossed the border through the desert and he would have to hide from the police in the dirt. Um, he would go through the tunnels. No, he'd go in the water and he'd swim at night so that they wouldn't get caught. Um, the scariest part for him was not knowing what was on the other side. So he didn't know what to expect, and that was probably the scariest thing. When my dad got over here, he did work anywhere that he was allowed to go and get paid. So as long as he get paid, he'd probably work. He would do gardening, painting, roofing, and cement. My parents, they met in Concord, California. My dad moved into the apartment complex that my mom was the manager of, and that's how they met. They decided to get married a few years later. My mom made sure that my dad got his citizenship because she was scared that something would happen to him or he would get deported. So he went through the process and it took about 5 years. My dad was actually really scared to do it only because he didn't speak English and he didn't know how that was going to work. My dad left Mexico because there was nothing for him there. He wanted a better life, more opportunities, the living conditions, working conditions, everything was better here. My dad's experience has shaped his values and outlook on life by the responsibility that he takes on every day. Um, he knew that it was going to be difficult, but he knew that he wasn't going to make it over there, so he decided to come here, and he did. Um, he shows that the hard work he's done paid off. My dad tries to help as many people who are less fortunate than him. He sends money to his mom every month so that she could support so he could support her. The conflict or the hardest part for him was not when he came here was not understanding the language. He didn't speak any English, and my mom spoke no Spanish. So I don't really know how they communicated, but they did. The food and clothing was also something that was really weird for my dad. He noticed that things were all new. People wore new clothes, didn't have anything. They were never dirty, and that was weird for him. Another thing that affected him was how people were always wanting to buy things. He never had the chance to buy things, so that was different. My father's hope is to live happy. He wants us to continue our education and get a good paying job so that we never have to suffer as much as he did. He works in construction, and his job is really hard. He's a foreman, and it's a very physical job, and he doesn't want us to ever have to do that. So he wants me and my sister and brothers to continue our education so that we can become successful. The one thing that my dad wants people to remember the most about him is how much of a hard worker he was and how dedicated he was to doing the right thing.